And I'm on the Zoom call now, but can't hear anything, just using audio as the meeting started.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this is Phyllis. I'm zooming in from the office.
Okay, Phyllis, this is Trey. I'm here in my office.
Okay.
Hi, Phyllis, it's Greg.
Hey, Greg.
Hey, good morning, everyone. We will go ahead and call to order the business meeting for June 19th, 2020. It is 11:12, and I'm going to ask Miss Shirley, would you mind opening us up with prayer, please?
Bow our heads, please. Most gracious and heavenly Father, we come to you today to thank you for another beautiful day on this earth. We thank you for the presence of everyone that's here and those that are out and about in this world. Put your armor of protection around us, for we are dealing with something that is unknown to us. If you will, Father, help us to make the proper decisions that will help protect the public and ourselves. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Miss Shirley. All right, so we will are doing something a little bit different with our board business meeting today. We have social distancing in place where we have all board members present, and we have a hybrid of virtual, and we do have the public that has been able to join virtually either by phone conference or video. At this point, we do have a quorum. I will ask for, you have the agenda in front of you. I will ask for a motion for approval of the agenda. Moved by Dr. Michelle Owens. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Shirley Jackson. Is there any discussion or amendments? All in favor? Opposed? Abstainer? Motion passes. At this point, it will bring us to an open forum. And so I will ask at this point if there's anybody in the room that needs to give a report. And it appears we only have staff and board members in the room. So at this point, I will ask that while we are asking for an open forum and everybody will be virtually or by phone, that everyone on the Zoom meeting or that has dialed in to please put yourself on mute and be aware of other people trying to talk without interruption, and let people finish their statements, please. So at this point, I will open it up to virtually. Is there anybody on the virtual connection that would like to give a report out to the board? You can do so by raising your hand on the Zoom connection or I'm sorry, or unmute yourself, either one.
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
this is Phyllis. I do know that MNA is on the Zoom. Teresa Malone is the executive director. She was having somewhat of a bad connection, but she did want me to convey and express MNA's thanks to the board for the ONW funds for the Psych Mental Health Nurse Practitioner Review and the COVID Continuing Education Series. So I want to pass that information on just in case she wasn't able to unmute and speak.
Thank you for that, Ms. Johnson. Teresa, are you able to join in? Do you have anything else to add? All right, we will take that as a close. Is there anybody else that is on virtually that would like to, that has any comments for the board? All right, so that will bring us to the Office of Nursing Workforce. Greg?
Good morning. The ONW action plan to respond to the COVID-19 was to contact all entities that had been approved for ONW funded projects initially. Of those projects that were still pending and had not been completed, we asked them to convert their event to a virtual platform and make it relevant to the COVID-19 response. Here's a partial list of what we've done since mid-March. Global Training Institute converted the many science academies targeting high school students in all school districts to a web-based basic ventilation management training for 250 nurses in the state. First priority was given to the smaller rural hospitals in the state before registration was opened up to everyone. This was in collaboration with Mississippi Hospital Association, and thank them for participating. MNA modified 2 of their ONW supported projects. One became the COVID-19 webinar series featuring in-state health experts on the panel, and that's ongoing. The second one is the PMHNP review, providing education on the certification of psychiatric mental health nurse practitioners in the state. And of course, we know there's a shortage there. These are also currently underway or about to be. American Heart Association converted the Hypertension Summit, originally scheduled to be held in Jackson, to a series of 4 webinars. 2 of the webinars are complete, with the last 2 scheduled for July 1 and July 15. We've had over 150 registrants so far for the first 2 and anticipate a slightly better response for the last 2. We're in process and awaiting return of a contract is the Mississippi Academy for Simulation Training at UMC. They're going to provide 3 to 4 virtual simulation training sessions targeting LPN faculty and directors in the coming few weeks, with completion originally by June 30, but sometime in mid-July. So that's progressing well. In addition, ONW is working on an application for the USDA Distance Learning Telemedicine Grant, with the application deadline of July 13. Christy Levy, Program Manager for ONW, is working with Dr. Cindy Jaffrian of the Funding Advisory Group on this project. If we receive this grant, it would allow the board to provide 2 schools of nursing located in rural areas an opportunity to acquire distance learning technologies so that local nursing educators can link to other nursing educators located at distances too far to access otherwise. We're excited about this. It is a work in process, and the application is currently seeking letters of support from those rural schools of nursing around the state. Scott, any questions about that? Scholarship applications for FY 2021 was sent out in April, and most have been received and some returned. It's right at this moment, not sure what the level of support would be for FY 21, and hopefully we'll know more about that in the coming few weeks. MNVP, COVID-19 had an impact on the number of inquiries and referrals to the program, quite naturally. While we still received some referrals, there were challenges in obtaining timely initial assessments, which impeded our ability to schedule intakes. However, we are pushing on, and we have were able to intake 3 new participants during lockdown. Have 2 scheduled for this Tuesday, another one for Monday the 29th, and 3 more pending. So I'm looking for a positive uptick in the conversions of those intakes. We'll be working on some virtual educational webinars that we'll use for marketing purposes that we were going to be doing on site with Lunch and Learns, but that's changed. So that's my report. Any questions?
Yes, Dr. Stewart.
Greg, can you hear me?
I cannot. Well, I can, but barely.
I can stand right here. Okay. Can you hear me now, Greg?
Yes.
Okay, hey, this is Mary Stewart. Thank you for your report. I know that you are super busy, and the last thing you want to do is have somebody ask you, what about this? But I have a question about the progress from the Office of Nursing Workforce in terms of workforce data. I have had several people from different academic institutions across the state and trying to deal with the numbers of students that we can manage, which students and which programs we should be strengthening and targeting. And in many respects, it's a guess because we don't have yet clear data on where our workforce needs are. And I know that's something that you have been working on, and I think there perhaps is a contract with a group that's been working on that. But if you could give us an update and when we might expect a report to review, I would appreciate it.
Absolutely. I appreciate the question. I omitted it from the report today, pardon me, because I anticipated on having more information. It is ongoing. We have a deadline of July 1 to publish the joint report with the Hospital Association and the Institutions of Higher Learning. It'll be a joint report detailing supply, demand, and educational data. We're meeting weekly with our consultant to compile that. He is now has access to the data from all of the entities, and so we'll be combining this and drafting the report over the next week and a half or 2. So we anticipate having a draft the last week of June, and it should be ready for publication by July 1 or shortly thereafter. So we're really on task with it. We did have a little hiccup with the lockdown, but beyond that, I feel like this will address some of your questions, and we're very hopeful in years to come that it will take on much more meaning than perhaps this first pass will. So I hope that answers your question somewhat.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Stewart. So, Greg, can we anticipate a full report of those data metrics to come out at the July meeting?
I certainly would hope so. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for that. Any other questions or comments about the ONW report? Thank you very much.
May I just thank I'd like to say thank you to the executive leadership of the Board of Nursing, the board itself, Ms. Sandra Culpepper, and of course, all my coworkers with whom I work daily. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. All right, that will move us to the next order of business, which is we need a motion to approve the business Zoom meeting minutes that took place April 29th of 2020. Do I have a motion to accept or approve those? Make a motion by Miss Nancy Johnson. Is there a second? Second by Dr. Teresa Stanford. Any discussion about that? All right, all in favor? Any opposed? Abstainers? Motion passes. The next, I think I need to go back and ask for a motion to amend the agenda to include the special call meeting that was held on June 11th regarding a public statement from the board of directors and board staff that occurred on 6/11. So I'd like to amend the agenda, a motion to amend the agenda to include approval of those minutes. And that motion is made by Ms. Nancy Johnson. Is there a second? Second by Dr. Michelle Owens. Is there any discussion about that? All in favor? Opposed? Abstainers? Motion passes. So at this point, I need a motion to approve those special call meeting minutes that occurred on 6/11/2020 regarding a public statement to be placed on social media. I have a motion made by Dr. Stanford. Is there a second? Dr. Owens. Any discussion? At this point, Ms. Johnson, can I ask you to read the results of that statement, please, for the record of what that meeting incurred?
Yes. The Mississippi Board of Nursing Statement on Diversity and Equality in America. Our nation has witnessed violent deaths in recent weeks that have especially impacted our communities of color. The Mississippi Board of Nursing shares in the pain and trauma experienced by our nation and joins with millions of our fellow citizens who are making their voices heard for justice and equality. The Mississippi Board of Nursing is dedicated to licensing a diverse and competent workforce to ensure that all individuals have access to quality health care. The nursing profession embodies a code of conduct that has given nursing the reputation of being the most trusted profession. Nurses manifest that code of conduct when rendering care to all individuals regardless of skin color. The Mississippi Board of Nursing's charge to promote and maintain the health of the citizens we serve can only be fulfilled when we denounce any form of racism, bias, or prejudice within our prestigious ranks or elsewhere. We reject racism and all violence against our fellow man. As nurses and public servants, we persist in our commitment to caring for all persons. The Mississippi Board of Nursing stands in solidarity to support true equality, human dignity, health equity, and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Is there any discussion, or can we have a, did we get the motion? No. Can we make a motion was made by Ms. Nancy Johnson to approve and accept those minutes, and it was seconded by Dr. Stanford, and it was read. Any discussion about it? All right, all in favor? Any opposed? Any abstainers? Motion passes. Now we will move to a motion needed to approve hearing panel minutes from June and July of 2019. Motion made by Ms. Nancy Johnson. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Brandy Taylor. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Abstainers? Motion passes. At this point, we need a motion to waive the reading of the names. Motion made by Mr. TJ Adams. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Alton Shaw. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstainers? Motion passes. Next business is future meetings. We have agreed settlement proposals scheduled for July 21st, 2020. We have disciplinary hearings July 22nd and 23rd, 2020, beginning at 08:30 a.m. Business meeting is scheduled for July 24th, 2020 at 11:05. And the disciplinary panel for that week will consist of Ms. Sandra Culpepper, Ms. Brandy Taylor, Dr. Melissa King, and Mr. TJ Adams. That brings us to legislation update. Trey?
Yes, thank you. Can everyone hear me?
We can, and I'm glad to hear your voice. It's been too long.
You too. Thank you, Madam President. Same to you. And hello to all the board members. I'm glad everybody's staying safe, and certainly being a non-medical professional, I appreciate each and every board member and the staff, what you're doing to kind of, in addition to your normal duties, protecting the public and treating those that are sick from COVID. I'd just like to start out by saying very quickly, as you might imagine, much like what you've experienced in your clinics and hospitals, the legislative session, this has been the strangest one that I've been a part of, and I've been a part of a number of them. We are near the end of the session. The plan is for we anticipate the legislature leaving or recessing until October, probably next Wednesday or maybe Thursday. I'll get into this in a moment. Of course, we've still got to get our appropriation bill finalized, as well as the other state agencies that have appropriation bills. I will make a quick mention. You may have seen this in the media. Lieutenant Governor Hosemann is seeking $150 million for long-distance learning, including the expansion of broadband to our rural areas where a lot of people don't have adequate access to the internet, and that's a real problem, whether it's our school children, but it also hits us directly in the availability of telemedicine, Madam President, which you have a keen interest in, as well as other board members. And this could be, I guess, an accelerant, if you will, for availability and usage in the future, if indeed this money is appropriated to fund this purpose. There's been some questions about whether or not this complies or is within the intent of the Federal CARES Act, which is what provided Mississippi with the $1.25 billion for COVID-related expenses. But I did want to mention that it is something that really could help our rural areas and thus potentially telemedicine availability. I'd like to also mention real briefly, House Bill 984 is headed to the governor. That was a Board of Nursing sponsored bill that you, the board, and our Phyllis and our staff, Gloria, Brett, Shan, a lot of us worked on it. But basically, for your special call meetings, as you know, you have to have a 10-day notice provided in the current statute, which is antiquated and problematic, Madam President. As you know, when you have pressing issues, sometimes it's difficult, if it's an emergency or something that needs to be addressed, to wait on a 10-day notice. What we did is ask the legislature to eliminate that 10-day requirement from the current state law. And I'm pleased to report that they did that. We had a bill introduced in the House Public Health. It passed the House, went to the Senate, passed out of Senate Public Health, and it is now headed to the governor. So that is something I think, just from a procedural administrative standpoint, will be helpful for future special call meetings. Secondly, we had House Bill 983, which was also a BON bill that we worked on, and I want to thank Brett for doing a lot of work, because it specifically deals with the hearings that we have, disciplinary, revocation, those type proceedings that you guys have been dealing with this week. We had a bill, 983, that passed the House overwhelmingly. Well, it first passed out of the House Public Health Committee, went to the Senate. It was not taken up in the Senate Public Health Committee, but I've met with the Lieutenant Governor's office, and basically it came down to the fact that with the COVID break of almost 2 months, there were a number of bills, unless they were absolutely essential, that they made a decision not to take up. But I was told in 6 months, when we come back in January, this bill will have priority. And quite frankly, we also wanted to make some tweaks to it. This would allow us to recoup expenses for conducting these revocation hearings or disciplinary hearings. And we want to be able to recoup reasonable expenses for those things and also have that money added back to our special fund when collected. Also gave us a mechanism to collect the money if it wasn't paid. So I feel really good meeting with the Lieutenant Governor's office that in January this bill will be taken up, and I feel really good about our prospects of passing that bill when we go back into session. I wanted to mention House Bill 94 very quickly. Ms. Johnson, our executive director, had spoken to me about this bill. This bill establishes the Mississippi Center for Rural Health Innovation. That's set up within the Mississippi Department of Health. And it's really the purpose of the center is to provide services and resources to rural hospitals, critical access hospitals, rural health clinics, and other similar facilities. You know, they're supposed to provide expert analysis, guidance, training opportunities, and telehealth investment. To qualify as a rural hospital under this act, this is House Bill 94, and it is going through the process, and it is going to be sent to the governor for his signature. But under the bill, rural hospital would mean a licensed Mississippi hospital that has 50 or fewer licensed general acute non-specialty beds, or is located within the boundaries of a municipality that has a population of less than 7,400 people. But this is a bill that, like I said, is just an effort to help and give more support to our rural hospitals in Mississippi. Senate Bill 2117, Phyllis and I had also discussed this bill. This is known as the Military Family Freedom Act. You know, there's a lot of sensitivity to our military personnel, and we certainly understand and appreciate that. This bill basically provides a streamlining of military personnel or spouses to expedite occupational licensing, obtaining occupational licenses, which covers many disciplines. Of course, it covers nursing as well. It does not interfere with our interstate compact. There's language in there that it does not hurt that or in any way interfere with it, but there is a good bit of language, detailed language about streamlining someone, particularly from another state that's coming to Mississippi that has, you know, a license from another state or work experience that the board could consider to meet our requirements to grant them a license. And it, like I said, it's an effort to just try to help some of the military folks. In speaking with Phyllis, she believes, and I concur, that I don't know that it really changes a lot because you guys have already kind of been ahead of the curve on some of this in expediting and helping folks obtain license. I know the Board of Nursing should be commended for being one of the literally first agencies, if not the first, to step out as far as occupational licensing and working to make it easier to allow healthcare workers to come into the state. Another bill I'm going to quickly mention is House Bill 1104. This is a bill that a number of state agencies had some questions about, but the leadership at the Capitol, I think there was a lot of support for it. House Bill 1104 allows the review of existing occupational regulations by the Occupational Licensing Review Commission. You know, that Occupational Licensing Review Commission is made up of the governor, the Secretary of State, and the Attorney General. And it's already in the law, as you guys know, that any prospective regulations that we propose, you know, we have to submit them to this commission for review. And so that's already in place. This basically just says they can also consider on their own motion an existing regulation of basically any licensing agency in the state to consider if there's something they think is inappropriate, or I say inappropriate, not necessary or needed. Of course, if they took such action, the agency would be provided an opportunity to change the regulation, modify it, or whatever may be appropriate. So that is the other bill. It had a companion bill, House Bill 1105, but that bill died on the calendar. Finally, we have our appropriations bill. As usual, Shan's done an outstanding job working with me and with the Legislative Budget Office and having all our numbers and data prepared to back up our request. We don't just ask for monies or pens. We have a real need for that. And that is in conference right now. I told Shan earlier, I'm expecting something early next week to come out, a final proposed version of our Board of Nursing appropriations bill. That bill number is House Bill 1688, 1688. And I've talked to Jason and different legislators, and we have certainly continued to communicate with them on our needs, particularly to make sure that we have all the pens that we have and the funding that's appropriate to carry out the mission and the goals of the Mississippi Board of Nursing. That concludes my report, Madam President.
Thank you so much, Trey. I think that's the biggest report that we've had from a legislative update in a long time. So thank you for the thorough report and getting us up to date. Any questions for Trey? All right, perfect. Thanks, Trey. That will bring us to the Executive Director report. Ms. Johnson?
Good morning again. You have the Executive Director report. I know in your packet, since we're doing this thing from a social distancing standpoint, I'll just briefly give you a summation. First of all, I want to say thank you to the nurses in the state of Mississippi. All of those that have been on the front line during what has definitely been some unprecedented times and uncharted waters. Thank you for the service that you have provided. That includes the nurses that serve on our board of directors, which is all of you, except for Jan, and Jan would take you in as a nurse. But thank you all, because Jan has worked hard as well. I know that from firsthand experience in her role. But thank you all for the work that you have done. Also to our doctor that serves on our board, the physicians have been phenomenal. They've worked as hard, if not harder than the nurses. So thank you to the physicians in the state of Mississippi as well. I just couldn't let that go by. It's been phenomenal. COVID-19. What else can be said? It is definitely uncharted waters, but I think we here at the Board of Nursing have navigated those waters pretty successfully. That being said, kudos to the Board of Nursing staff. We have done tremendous things to make sure that the citizens of the state of Mississippi have remained safe throughout this. I want to take just a few minutes to signal out some of the staff that have been, all the staff have been phenomenal, but the executive leadership staff, Nashan Montgomery, Brett Thompson May, and our Director of HR, Elaine Hunter, have worked tirelessly in making sure that we were able to continue to provide the services that need to be provided, and also that our personnel remain safe. There was a mental health component that came into that as well. I thank our HR director for being available and assisting us with those maneuvers as well. Licensure team, they've been phenomenal. We have been able to, as of the last report, I think that was June 15th, we had 1,105 temporary permits have been issued. As you are aware, the board of directors authorized an emergency proclamation at the beginning of this in March that also assisted in us being able to provide those temporary permits. Of those 1,105, 772 are RNs, 199 are LPNs, 127 are nurse practitioners, and 7 of those are our CRNAs, our nurse anesthetists. So 1,105 temporary permits have been issued thus far, and those individuals are out there and contributing. So kudos to the board of directors for allowing us to have that capacity or ability rather to issue those temporary permits. And licensure has worked hard. Kudos to the licensure staff and Tina Highfield, who is the director of that division, in all that they have done. In legal, kudos to Brett Thompson May. We have been able to do virtual hearings. Brett and her team also were a part of the temporary permits being developed. So Brett has worked diligently on this, and I think this has been successful in our first attempt at doing the virtual hearings, and you are a prime example that we're able to do this and provide this information to the public. So thank you, Brett, for that. And Shan Montgomery, our Director of Operations, CFO, many other hats, has been very instrumental in the technology that we're utilizing here today. She's worked effortlessly, and I must say that again, effortlessly, in making sure that we were able to continue our operations and fulfill our mission. So I thank you to her and her team for all that they have done. The Safe Return to Work handbook that we have developed, all of that has been put in place. So our staff, your staff, has worked very, very hard to accomplish these things. I am eternally grateful to them for the hard work that they have done. We've spent a lot of time after hours teleworking, and we've been able to telework. So there have been lessons learned. We were able to continue to work from the day that the governor said, you know, we're going to be on a lockdown, for lack of a better term, for a little while. But the operations of the Board of Nursing continued. There was never a letdown. We never let up off anything that we had to do. And that is contributable to the staff and the hard work that they have put forward. So I just had to say that. Some of the lessons learned, also, again, the telework. We're able to telework. And we now know that we can do that. You will notice that we are social distancing. And one of the reasons that we're able to do that is because of the hard work that's been put in place, but also because we have an alternate schedule of telework where all of the staff are not in the agency at any one given time. So we do have some people that are teleworking today from home, and then there are some in the office. The Board of Nursing is open for business. However, we do advocate that anybody that has business with the board to contact the board and schedule an appointment. Again, that's to make sure that we're compliant and maintain our social distancing requirements. Some of the other things that I wanted to mention, we have the annual meeting coming up on August the 12th, 2020, and everything, National Council has reviewed their information about conferences in the near future, and this will be totally virtual. So this conference will be virtual. If you have not registered and you want to attend the conference virtually, please do so. We do have our delegates that have been named, and I think that is Ms. Sandra Culpepper and Dr. Mary Stewart will be an alternate board delegate member. And from the staff, we have Tina Highfield, who is going to be the delegate, and Dr. Priscilla Burks will be the alternate delegate to attend the meeting on that day. So if you have not registered and you wish to attend, I think it's going to be a 4-hour. They've condensed it, but please do so. And just get with Vanessa. There is no charge to register to the members. So feel free to do so if you have not. As far as board visibility, pretty much everything that has been done from home. With the exception, we were visible in a lot of things prior to the governor declaring the state of emergency for our state. And some of the things that we did attend was the mid-year conference. We were able to do that just about a week or so, a week and a half prior to everything going on lockdown. And that was held in Boston. So I thank you to the members that did attend that, the board members that did attend that particular conference. We were also able to participate in the M&A Nursing Summit. ONW has done a tremendous job. Thank you, Greg, for all that you do and your team, and that they have continued to provide the necessary services to make sure that we had a skilled workforce ready for this pandemic and ongoing during the pandemic to provide the training, which he gave in his report. I was also appointed to the governor's COVID-19 advisory group and task force, have worked with Dr. Dobbs and members of that particular advisory group, and also the State Department of Health, and doing some things to make sure that the Board of Nursing had a seat at the table to ensure that we had a skilled nursing workforce going forward. Trying to think if there's anything else specifically that I needed to bring up at this point. Very short, just know that we have been very, very busy, very, very busy. At this point, if there are no questions, I will turn it over to Shan and she can give us an update on the budget.
Thanks, Phyllis. Shan, budget?
Okay, I'll go right into the budget. Most of you received the budget analysis before today. As Ms. Johnson said earlier, COVID has definitely taken an impact, and the budget has been no different. As of April 30th, we are down 13.97%. Before COVID, we were only down 2.36%. I do believe as we continue to monitor the revenue that we will be in line with fiscal year 2018 as the licensees continue to get real license because the permits were of no charge. I'm sure we will go back up in those numbers. And fingerprinting, we were also not fingerprinting during COVID-19. We have about 900 of those on standby as Dwayne and his team is getting ready to begin fingerprinting. So I'm confident that those numbers will go back up and will be in line with fiscal year 18, if not above fiscal year 18. Expenditures, we've been, in expenditures, we are low in expenditures as we have not done any travel over the last 3 months. A lot of things have been cut out from expenditures. So I'm pretty excited about having that balance out the revenue shortage. Trey did a great job at covering our fiscal year 21 budget. As Trey said, we are currently waiting to hear from the Legislative Budget Office. They have proposed to cut us by 11 positions, 6 of those which are unfilled, 5 which are filled. So I'm hopeful that we will know more once they know more, maybe at the beginning of next week. It's my understanding that most state agencies were getting cut by 20%. We've escaped that 20%. We're going to be cut, possibly cut by $645,864. That's in conversation with the LBO analysts. And again, it's kind of up in the air. Our analyst has been with us for 4 years. He usually gives me straight answers. But under these circumstances, he's not able to give me straight answers. And I think that may be just with the leadership in the legislature right now. But we're hopeful. This will probably be the largest cut that we've had in many years. But I'm very hopeful. I remain hopeful. I will end with saying that we do have sufficient funds to cover our fiscal year 21. As of today, we have $4,695,232, which will definitely fund our fiscal year 21 requests. And I'm open for any questions, comments, or concerns about the budget. Yes, ma'am.
First of all, thank you for the report.
Mhm.
So just a clarification. So what you're anticipating is this reduction, and then it says we were only awarded 29 of 41 PINs.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yes.
So we're actually looking at 12, 12 positions?
One position.
Well, 6 are not filled, so that's 6 that we would lose, not 5.
Correct.
Okay, just clarify.
Yeah, thank you. Any other additional questions?
Thank you, Dr. Stewart. Did everybody hear that clarification? Great, thanks, Shan. With that, I will ask for a motion to approve the budget. Motion made by Dr. Mary Stewart. Is there a second? Second by Nancy Norris, Johnson. Sorry, I'm gonna do that every time. Any discussion or questions? All in favor? Opposed? Abstainers? Motion passes. I do also want to take this opportunity to say thank you to the board staff for everything that you have done. I personally participated in the virtual hearings. Shan, thank you for the technology. I know what it feels like to go live with a technology situation and platform, and it is very trying and difficult, and you're always on edge. So thank you for your diligence in getting that to work well. Brett, thank you so much for the legal proceedings and how they went smoothly and seamlessly. If we can see any silver lining in COVID, I think it is that we are learning how to be nimble and innovative and make healthcare work and make our situations work to keep our economy going as well. So thank you, and kudos to you, Ms. Johnson, in your leadership. So thank you for that. All right, that brings us to committee reports, and the first one up is executive committee. So at this point, the executive committee would bring a motion forward to accept the administrative denial, case number 2019-0790, which is a denial of an LPN reinstatement. Is there a second for that? Second by Ms. Sandra Culpepper. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstainers? Motion passes. The next motion that is coming out of executive committee, is for July virtual hearings to stay on availability, whether it be virtual or a hybrid, but to at least allow that to occur. So the motion is on the floor for July hearings to have the ability to maintain virtual connection. Is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Brandy Taylor. Any discussion, or Brett, do you have anything that you would like to add during this time, talking about the authority and the virtual connection during this time for board business meetings and hearings?
Sure. Good morning, Madam Chair and board members. I do want to make mention that we did have the emergency rule filed regarding our disciplinary virtual proceedings. That was found in Part 2825 in the Administrative Code, Rule 1.13. Those were filed as an emergency rule on June 3rd. So they are operating. We do have that rule out there that operates as law, so we are able to proceed virtually. I do also want to take the time to welcome Edward Wiggins. I know, Madam Chair, you may want to welcome him as well, but certainly we miss Gloria Green. She has been endeared to our board, but wanted to certainly mention Mr. Wiggins and thank him already for his assistance and legal expertise on the matters as we've been able to proceed forward, particularly with the virtual process. So I do want to just let the board know that we have those filed. We've been operating. It's working. I'm glad that you all are voting to move it to July. I think there's some value even past COVID, to implement some virtual proceedings and processes. It just works. So I appreciate you all very much allowing us to proceed. And I think Shan, with the technology, we could not have done this without her and her team making sure that we were able to have enough bandwidth and all of the other IT components that go into that. So for sure. And then to our executive director, again, who's just, blessed all of this and said, go, just go. And so I appreciate her leadership in allowing us to try this. So if there's any questions about the procedures, I just wanted to make sure the board knew that they were filed, and they're filed as an emergency rule. And we have the capability of proceeding even beyond COVID.
Thank you, Brett, for that report. And my apologies, Mr. Wiggins, for not introducing you at the very beginning. So we greatly appreciate your input and are very grateful for all the help that you've given. So thank you and welcome to the team. So now we'll go to a vote. All in favor of extending July to have the ability to be virtual? Favor? Any opposed? Any abstainers? All right, motion passes. The other motion that we have coming out of executive committee would be the filing of the rules for the Fresh Start Act. They are in your packet, but I think I will, Brett, ask you before we, I think we'll go ahead and discuss that. Do you mind giving a brief high-level overview of these rules and the process we did to get here?
Sure. So the law was passed in 2019 for the Fresh Start Act, and it is codified in 7377 1 et sec. And in the Fresh Start Act, basically, it mandates that all state agencies supply procedures within the admin code on how to address pre-licensure determinations. So the gist is that basically any individual who wants to know prior to them entering nursing school, for example, if they could perhaps have a license given some criminal history, then the board would have to respond to that request. And I know that seems, you may be puzzled, you may be scratching your head. Trust me, we on this end did as well. But it is part of the occupational licensure movement, as well as trying to help individuals that want to go to nursing school. If they know that they perhaps may not obtain a license, then it would be a financial gain for them not to pursue perhaps nursing school. So the procedure then would be that when an individual wants to request whether or not a license could be granted them because of, in lieu of the fact that they have some criminal past, then our staff here, we would review that material much like a case review process, and then issue some written letter to that individual stating the reasons why or why not they may or may not be licensed. I do want to remind the board that this, trying to remember exactly which hearing cycle, but there was a letter that was signed by Ms. Johnson on behalf of the board, and it involved at least 32 other boards, because we formed a committee with myself, Gloria Green, Liza Hayes, and there's another gentleman at the AG's office that's, his first name is Ken, and Edward, you may have to help me with his last name, but what is it? Wally, that's it. And we all met, and in representing a lot of different boards, came up with a draft that would be implemented not just by this board, but by other boards as well, so that we could at least be consistent in our process. So I don't know if that's enough, Madam Chair, information to provide the board, but if there's questions, I'd be happy to answer best I can.
So it is recommended out of executive committee and the motion has been made to accept these rules for the Fresh Start Act. Do I have a second? Second by Ms. Brandy Taylor. Now, is there any discussion or further questions for Brett or Mr. Wiggins at this point? All right, all in favor? Any opposed? Any abstainers? Motion passes. All right, we also have a special call Zoom meeting that we need the minutes approved from 3/16/20 and accepted. Can I get a motion to accept those?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Blake Ward. Is there a second? Seconded by Dr. Michelle Owens. Any discussions or questions about that? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstainers? Motion passes. All right, that brings us to the Compliance Committee. TJ,
Thank you, Madam President. I move that the board adopt the Compliance Committee's recommendation for the following affidavits, formal reprimands to be accepted for ratification. License number R888160, license number P318687, license number R862315, license R907721, license number R863487, license number R865708. I move that the board adopt the Compliance Committee's recommendation to approve the second request of license number P318760 for an extension on her probation to completion to 6 months of monitored practice requirement. And I move that the board adopt the Compliance Committee's recommendation to approve the provider's treatment regimen for license number R860354.
thanks, Mr. Adams. Y'all have been busy. We have a motion on the table to accept multiple affidavits from the Compliance Committee. Is there a second?
A second.
Second by Mr. Blake Ward. Thank you. Any discussion or questions? All in favor? Any opposed? Abstainers? Motion passes. Any other committee business from you, Mr. Adams? Thank you very much. Advanced practice, Dr. Stanford? Thank you, Dr. Stanford. The practice committee, Dr. Stewart. It's because you speak so well.
Yeah, I'm sure that's it. Okay, so I do have, the practice committee did meet this morning, and there are a couple of things that we discussed that I want to just bring forward information-wise. One is actually coming in the form of a recommendation, but I wanted to give you a little background on that. So we had guests in our meeting today from a law firm representing an agency in North Mississippi. They had asked a question about LPN practice in terms of tracheostomy care, and they were requesting a position statement. After much discussion and referencing of materials that the board has already posted in this regard, we agreed to, our recommendation is that we reaffirm what is already on our website about LPN trach care, and then legal counsel will then communicate that to the firm in Tupelo. So, and this is coming from the practice committee, so I don't know that you need a second, but this is the recommendation, and it is verbatim what we currently have on the website. So I move that the board adopt the practice committee's recommendation that it is within the scope of practice of the licensed practical nurse to perform tracheostomy care, nasopharyngeal suctioning, and to suction secretions from a trach endotracheal tube. That it is within the scope of practice of the licensed practical nurse to suction secretions from a tracheostomy, and that it is not within the scope of practice of the licensed practical nurse to perform deep right main stem suctioning. If deep right main stem suctioning is required for the patient, a registered nurse must perform this procedure. Furthermore, the appropriately prepared licensed practical nurse may replace a tracheostomy provided, one, the nurse is educated and competent in the procedure. This education and competence are documented initially and on an ongoing basis. Number two, the tract is well healed for replacement. Three, there is a medical order for the procedure. Number four, the nurse practices according to generally accepted standards. Number 5, all the necessary resources are available. Number 6, the patient status does not contraindicate the procedure. And number 7, the agency facility has policies and procedures addressing all aspects of this issue. Policy should specifically address protocols related to elective versus accidental dislodgement of tracheostomy.
Thank you, Dr. Stewart. Just for clarification, that recommendation is, if passed by the board today, would be submitted in writing to the law firm that has requested. Mr. Mutzliger, do you have anything to add to that? Will you give that in writing to this law firm?
That's my understanding.
So good morning, or good afternoon, rather. So ultimately, any motion that is acted on by the full board today will be reduced to minutes. And I would in fact provide minutes of this full board's action to the law firm that made the inquiry.
Thank you, Mr. Mutzliger and Dr. Stewart. There is a motion. Is there a second to accept this recommendation? Seconded by Dr. Michelle Owens. Is there any discussion or questions for Dr. Stewart? All right, all in favor? Opposed? Abstainers? Motion passes. Thank you, Dr. Stewart. Any other business from your committee?
Thank you. Just information. You all are familiar. The practice committee is often charged with looking at specific practice issues or tasks, and that today was no different. And so as part of that discussion, we have asked that the board staff gather best evidence on the use of decision trees at a national level for us to review at the next meeting to help us perhaps guide in some of these responses and to the public. And that's information.
Thank you, Dr. Stewart. I'm sure I see Mr. Shaw over here laughing and smiling from ear to ear. He's been trying to get that pushed through, I think, for about 4 years since I've been here. Blake, you may have been part of that as well.
Yes, we approved
Okay.
it.
All right, so I think I see smiles from both of you guys.
I'm smiling too, but this is pretty much what other states are doing, but Ms. Johnson is going to be doing that research for us.
Perfect. Thank you. We look forward to seeing the evidence that will support us getting that availability. So thank you for your work on that, Dr. Stewart. All right, other business. We have administrative code. Mr. Shaw.
Yes, we have one thing to bring forward, and this is dealing with APR and continuing education. Each of you should have a copy of this. I move the board adopt Administrative Code Ad Hoc Committee's recommendation to file the following amendments to Administrative Code Part 2840, Rules 1.1 and 1.2 as proposed rules for the Secretary of State and OLRC. Okay, sorry. So that's the motion on the table.
All right, there is a motion on the table to accept the APR and continuing education rules. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Blake Ward. Is there any discussion or questions? All in favor? Any opposed? Abstainers? Motion passes. Any other business from administrative code?
We did have a few pieces of code to pass through dealing with telemedicine as well as mobile clinics. That has been referred to Wesley at this time for a little bit of research for inclusion into the code. And hopefully by the next meeting, we'll be able to vote on that officially.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. I also want to thank Mr. Mutzliger, Floyd Wiley, and Tina Highfield for your input with administrative code. I was sitting on that as we were looking at these telehealth regulations, and we didn't want to have unintended consequences, is why we've decided to postpone that till the next meeting. So I appreciate all of your input and your guidance to help us make the best decision. All right, LPN Education Committee, Ms. Taylor. So Ms. Taylor is just transitioning to that role. And so I think I heard her say she has no updates right now for the business meeting, and they will reconvene at a later time before the next meeting. Thank you, Ms. Taylor. Finance Committee. TJ.
No further business to bring forward.
Thank you, TJ. Thank you, Shan. Methods of operation, Mr. Ward.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. There is no business to bring forward at this time. However, I am excited to continue our progress in the upcoming weeks and months.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. Did it go out? Can y'all hear me? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ward. Emergency Practice and Standards Committee, Ms. Moore. Mass difficulties.
We have no business at this time, but I'm hoping to get a meeting scheduled in the next few weeks.
Perfect. Thank you, Ms. Moore. Let's see, Telehealth Task Force Committee, we as well do not have anything to bring forward in this business meeting. Depending on the next election that occurs today will be depending on if we need that, since the regulations have already made it to administrative code. So we will more to be known about that committee. And then Office of Nursing Workforce, Ms. Culpepper, do you have anything to bring forward?
I have nothing to bring forward. However, I want to express my gratitude to Greg Taylor, who has remained in great contact with me, making sure that ONW filled the gap during this time. And so I'm grateful to him and his staff for making it happen on such a quick notice.
Thank you, Ms. Culpepper. I need to go back on one thing that is probably should have come out of administrative code, and it slipped my mind because it was on a different piece of paper. I'm going to ask Mr. Mutziger to go over some parts of our administrative code and rules so that we can see about the filings of those.
Sure. This board previously, if I don't mind, I'll remove that. This board previously filed rules and regulations regarding emergency practice standards, which would be encapsulated in parts 2830 and parts 2840. Following the public comment period, we received no public comments. So at this time, I would like to ask the board for a motion to continue in the rulemaking process to file with the OLRC and Secretary of State as a final rule those regulations without any change.
All right, so I would like a motion for the board to approve the following amendments to the administrative code without change to be filed as final rules with the Secretary of State and OLRC, and that's Part 2830, Rule 1.5, Part 2830, Rule 2.8, and Part 2840, Rule 1.6. Motion is made by Dr. Stanford. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Nancy Johnson. Any discussion or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstainers? Motion passes. Thank you, Wesley. Sorry about that on that delay. Just to reiterate, the next thing on is the NCSBN virtual annual meeting, which is to be held August 12th of 2020. Delegates consist of Ms. Sandra Culpepper, and has Tina received her doctorate yet? We don't know. So she hasn't. Okay, so Ms. Tina Highfield, and the alternates are Dr. Mary Stewart and Dr. Priscilla Burks. With that, it comes to the next item on the agenda is election of officers, and I will ask Mr. TJ Adams, who was chair of the nominating committee, for his findings.
Thank you, Madam President. So first, I want to say thank you to Ms. Shirley Jackson and Ms. Brandy for assisting me on the committee. We met a few weeks ago and took the nominations, and we now have them on ballot. So I will hand those out. Just fold those over, and we will count them once you've submitted. Please feel free. You can also write in if you did not submit anything.
Would you mind announcing? I think I'm loud enough. Would you? I think my voice carries good. Would you mind announcing the positions and the nominees, please?
So the positions up on the ballot today for vote is president, vice president, treasurer, and secretary. For the nominations that were received to the panel, running for president, Mr. Alton Shaw, Vice President TJ Adams, Treasurer Dr. Melissa King, and Secretary Sandra Culpepper.
So it appears by current ballot from the nomination committee that there are only one candidate for each position. Any nomination from other board members or anybody on the call or in the public? Going once, going twice. Okay, so I think I am accurate in saying at this point we can vote by acclamation. Is that correct? Since there are not any oppositions to the current ballot. Is that correct, Mr. Wiggins? All right, so it looks like we have our officers, which will include Mr. Alton Shaw as president, Mr. TJ Adams as vice president, Melissa King as treasurer, and Sandra Culpepper as secretary. Congratulations, everyone. And then I guess before we adjourn or ask if there's any more business, I just kind of want to take this last moment to say this: I am termed out as president. It has been the most honoring and humbling experience that I have had. I have learned a lot from everybody. I've had more support than I could ever imagine, and there's no way that I could have done anything and this board could have moved forward from an innovative perspective or successfully without everybody that has participated. I thank you, Blake, for being a mentor. Dr. Catledge before was a mentor as well. So I just thank each and every one of you for your participation and engagement and willingness to work. And I promise you I will give the same support to Mr. Alton Shaw as he moves forward over the next year. And if there's anything that anybody else needs from me, I will still be here, hopefully. And at this point, is there any other business that needs to be brought forward? All right. Miss Shirley Jackson. Oh, goodness gracious. Okay, sorry, I almost forgot. We have another board member who has been a staple here for my 4 years, who's been wonderful to me and has also been wonderful to the board staff, and your expertise and knowledge is incredible. We are very saddened that your term is up and that we will see what the next steps are. So I would like to present you with this plaque for your dedication of your service, and know that you are very much appreciated and respected. Thank you, Dr. Stanford. Okay, sorry, I don't know how I can. Do you want to give a speech?
No.
All right, so with that, I think Ms. Shirley Jackson.
Madam President, I would like to humbly thank all the men that are here. Happy Father's Day to you. If you're not a father, you are a mentor for somebody's child. Thank you so very much. And Mother's last month to you as well.
Very good call, Ms. Shirley. Happy Father's Day to you, gentlemen. Hope you enjoy your day. And then the last reminder, which is was not on the agenda either, but we do have the executive director evaluation that is due. You do have it in your email with the link. A lot of us have done it, but we do not have 100% completion yet. So if you could please get that done by the Wednesday of next week, that would be greatly appreciated. It should be an email that just comes from, it says MBON, I believe, Executive Director Evaluation is how it's labeled. So if you could get that done, please. We will review those with Ms. Johnson once those are complete. All right, with that, I will ask for a motion to adjourn. Motion made by Ms. Jan Collins. Seconded by Dr. Teresa Stanford. All in favor? Opposed, abstainers, adjourn. All right, so meeting is adjourned. Thank you, guys.